Hey folks, and welcome back to the show. It is James here, and welcome back to my humble channel. Thank you very much for sticking around. It is now nearly the end of 2018. It is now almost coming to a close. I'm recording this on Boxing Day. I was going to do something before Christmas, like try and get something out for you guys, but it just never materialised. I wasn't going to do anything fancy anyway. I was going to do a vlog anyway, but you're just watching it, I suppose, a little bit later than I originally planned, so hopefully you still enjoy it. Have it on in the background if you like, as a podcast. I tend to usually do these at the end of the year, like a recap sort of thing, like what I've been generally been up to, and what sort of games I've been playing, which ones you should try, and I recommend you should check out as well, and what you can expect to see from me in 2018. As with all my vlogs, I have no idea how long it's going to be. I might be rambly as I usually am, or it might be just a 20-minute ditty. We'll see how it goes. So yes, all the Christmas festivities are now over and done with. I think a lot of people are just recovering from the effects of chocolate and alcohol, that very toxic mix if you have loads of it, especially the latter for me. I love chocolate, as you can probably tell, and alcohol's nice as well, and just getting all that all sorted and seeing family members and whatnot, and quite a stressful time for everyone involved, buying presents, and I've had a very nice time, and I hope all you viewers out there have had a nice time, if you celebrate Christmas, of course, and if not, happy holidays all the same. And I'm sort of, it's come and gone very quickly, and it's always bittersweet once it's all the run up to Christmas, and then it's all over again for a year, and then like the cycle starts again like 12 months later. But it's always a bit bittersweet sort of ceremony or ritual, or whatever you want to call it, and it's now this like really weird period in between Christmas Day and New Year's, where not a lot's going on until until the end of the year. And I think everyone goes to New Year's Eve parties, and you go around seeing family members and try and play catch up and whatnot. That's what we've been mainly doing, really. And I've had a nice Christmas, a bunch of great gifts from family members. Thank you very much for everyone who's given me gifts. You didn't have to, and as always, it's always a very stressful exercise. Like, people buy you presents, and it's always the obligation. You got to buy them something back, of course, as well, which is not always an easy thing to do. This year, I think I wasn't sure what my mum wanted for Christmas, so we couple of weeks ago, like I went downtown with her, and I said, is there anything in the shop you like? And she picked out a coat and a pair of boots, so I've just bought her those. I know it takes the surprise out of it, but like, I'm rather in the camp where if the person knows what they want, just let me know, and I can just actually buy them for you, or I can give you the money instead towards something else if you prefer. I'd rather like do that instead of buying something that they don't want, and then they have to go through the rigmarole of getting the receipts and taking it back, and it's just a nightmare. But with the advent of online shopping, that's not really much of an issue these days, really. For my brother, with the Christmas bonus I got from work, thank you very much for that, and a bit of money I got from Christmas as well, money I've been saving up, I've been upgrading my PC rig, and from the spare parts I had left over, when I was swapping parts out, I built him a PC rig from the spare parts that I still had in my old rig. I didn't really have to do a great deal on my machine, really. The only thing I upgraded, the main two parts upgraded was the processor and the graphics card, because that's not to say I didn't have a terrible processor and graphics card to begin with, but like, I wanted to upgrade it to as fast as I could get it on that particular spec that I wanted before I have to actually make the jump and actually have Windows 10 as by default, which I can't stand. I hate Windows 10. I do have Windows 10 on my solid state drive. I do have Windows 7 and Windows 10 on my PC, but I use Windows 7 pretty much everything. I just have Windows 10 just sitting there at the moment. I haven't touched it in months. It's just a nightmare with. Every single time they seem to do an update, Microsoft, they tend to break everything, and a major update a few months ago, like, was deleting people's files and overwriting registry files, and people losing files they haven't backed up because they didn't have chance and stuff. It's just awful. Windows 10. It's been out a couple of years. You'd think that they've fixed most of the bugs, but no, they just keep breaking everything. So I'm sticking with Windows 10 as long as Windows 7 as long as I possibly can. I think if people are interested, I think if any of you PC gamers out there and like you're interested in what sort of rig I've got, I'll let you know the specs. If you're interested, or just skip ahead if you're not. Because, as I said, I like to keep Windows 7 on my rig. It's probably the best operating system Windows has ever done compared to Windows XP. It's still supported up until the end of It's still receiving extended support until the end of 2020, I believe. So it's still got like at least a year or so of updates before like Microsoft stop supporting it, basically. But even then, it'll still work after then. But trouble is with Windows 7, it doesn't work with, well, it's not supported, quote unquote. You can get it to work with the trouble is they've Generation 7 processors by Intel and onwards don't officially support Windows 7. So you can, with Generation 7 processors, like it usually starts with a 7. If it's a Gen 7, it will be 700 or 7, whatever number it is. It'll update Windows to a certain point, but then it will say this processor does not support Windows 7. It'll just stop at that point. It'll still work, but like you won't get a lot of the major security updates on Generation 7 of Intel processors. So I've opted to keep support all in check. I've opted for the most powerful K processor in the 6th generation of processors, which is the 6700K. Which is, the one I had before was just the 6700, but I've just gone for basically the next model up in the consumer grade of processors, which is like 4 cores and 4 threads, which is plenty. It runs at 4 gigahertz at stock speed and also boosts. And of course, if I want to, I can overclock it if I want to. But probably not. I'm probably just going to leave it at stock. It's plenty fast enough as it is. But yeah, so I went for the most powerful upgrade I can get. So that still happily runs Windows 7 and 10 if I want to. And it still runs all the updates without really having to do any strange registry hacks and what have you. But the board I've got does support Generation 7 processors, so I can go up to Gen 7 if I want to in the future, but I doubt I'm going to do that. The idea is I've upgraded some of my components just to make it last as much as I can for the next 4 or 5 years before I even consider upgrading, because it's not cheap upgrading processors and graphics card. So I've upgraded the processor. I've put a new motherboard in my machine as well. Because unfortunately, I don't know whether I mentioned this, I must have had a power surge or something, and one of the banks, the RAM banks, must have got fried or something, took out a stick of RAM, and I can't use RAM in that slot anymore, so I had to change the motherboard. Put that board in my brother's PC. It still works fine, but you just can't use that memory bank slot anymore. You have to use the other 3 slots. So I swapped upgraded the motherboard to a newer model. And I've also put a new graphics card in there. I've upgraded to the 1080 Ti, which is probably a bit overkill, to be fair. But I wasn't originally going to get a 1080 Ti, but it was on Black Friday sale on eBuyer. I got this Zotac Mini GTX 1080, which is a fantastic little card. It's smaller than the previous card I had, which was the GTX 980 by Gigabyte, quite a huge thing. But it's got 11 gigabytes of video memory, which is pretty overkill for just a 1080p setup, which I've got currently. But I've bought that on special offer, and so I've upgraded to the 1080 Ti. I could have gone for an RTX, but I wasn't gonna do an RTX build this time around because I'm concerned about Nvidia currently having problems with their current crop of RTX graphics cards at the moment, and not a lot of games support ray tracing yet anyway. So my logic is like I'll just go for the most powerful consumer grade graphics card you can get in that range before you go into Titans, of course, and RTXs. So I've just went for the 1080 Ti, which is plenty overkill for what I need. 11 gig of video memory is loads for 1080p build, but I will in the new year now. I've spent loads already, really expensive thing, and so I will be looking at monitors later. But anyway, so all the parts I upgraded my machine. I've still got 16 gigs of RAM. I've kept the RAM. And I've kept all my hard drives and SSDs. I've just replugged everything in. Kept all my operating systems, Windows 7 and Windows 10, on separate SSDs, and got everything plugged in all ready to go. I don't bother with water cooling because I just can't be bothered with all that stuff. If water cooling, if you have a water cooling build, it can go horribly wrong. I want no hassle. I'll just have everything air cooled, just have massive fans in there. The case itself is a Corsair massive case. It's already got 4 fans in it already, and I've just bought a new Cooler Master cooler for the CPU itself, and a bit of newer thermal paste, and just applied that, and it's all lovely. It's lovely and silent. You can't hear it. And it's a lovely big case, and there's plenty of room for all the parts to breathe, and it does everything I want. I did have to swap out all the things as well, though, unfortunately, because I will say this: if you're looking into building your own PC rig, do your research. As I say, make sure all the components match. Make sure especially like the processor socket matches the motherboard you're going to get, and make sure you got the correct type of RAM, of course, and all. That's pretty easy to get, pretty difficult to get wrong, to be fair. Unfortunately, I had to swap out my really cool sound card I had. It's quite an old one, but this board doesn't support that particular type of sound card. It's all PCI Express lanes now. I think it was like an older type, but like it was basically a bit too big for one of the slots that I had available in there, so I had to swap it out for like a newer sound card, a Creative Sound Blaster sound card, so I can still use my 5 speakers. But that was quite cheap. Sound cards are really cheap these days. You get them for about £25 thereabouts ish, and they're really good. They're still really good, but like they used to cost hundreds of pounds back in the day, like about 15-20 years ago. But you can. A lot of boards have 5.1 surround sound anyway built in, but like I prefer to have like a separate discrete sound card. The sound quality is really good. It's a really old set of speakers, but they still sound really amazing. I thought, I'm not going to throw these out, no way. I'll just get a sound card for it and pair them together and that's it. So that was that, and I had to also swap out the USB header as well. So I use a lot of USB slots, so I had to swap out the USB 2 module I had and put a USB 3.0 one in there. It makes perfect sense because again it didn't fit, so I put those parts back in my brother's machine. He can have the parts that still fit in his motherboard, and he's all ready to go. So I had an extra set of RAM because I bought another 16 gig set. I ended up with 24 gigs in my machine, but I don't need 24 gigs in my gaming rig. That's just too much, and because I think it was an older Corsair set of memory, and it wasn't the same speed as the other set. It wasn't all the RAM wasn't running at the maximum dual channel speed. So I decided I'll just take that slot out, take that 8GB stick out, and you can have the 8GB stick in his machine. That's plenty for a gaming rig, and I'll just have the 16 as I had originally. And he had the graphics card, of course, the GTX 980 with 4GB of video memory. It's still a very good card. It's not top line, of course, anymore, but it's still a very powerful card in its own right. You can run everything on high 1080p, no problem, 60 FPS, no problem. And I just had to get it, sort him out a power supply and whatnot, and a SSD to put the operating system on, and I put Windows 7 on his machine. The only downside is with Windows 7 is the only thing I could really think of is so some of the new Microsoft games don't require Windows 10 to work, like if you want to play Gears 4. Not a major loss, it's not that great, Gears 4. Is it Gears 4? Or was it Gears 5? Well, the new Gears and Windows 10 anyway. Like I got it on sale for about like 10 quid, I think, a couple of months ago. I've got halfway through and I just never got back to it. It's just like, because it's on my Windows 10 SSD, I never went back to it. But that's how forgettable it was, really. But there's some games that want you to need Windows 10, but so do the Microsoft stuff you got to worry about, really. But if I want to put Windows 10 on my brother's machine, it's a doddle, really. Windows 10 keys are quite cheap, and I can just put like an extra hard drive in there, or an SSD, whatever I want to do. But like I've already set up his machine now. He can actually play your games with me on Steam now, and which is awesome. As I say, because now that's all done, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds. It's not cheap going into PC gaming, but I consider it like an investment sort of thing. You can spend literally thousands on PC gaming. I can understand why a lot of people just stick with consoles, because it is very cost prohibitive. But I consider it an investment. Like, you can, with a good PC, it lasts years. And you don't really have to. You probably only have to upgrade it every 5 or 6 years. Probably not even that frequently, really. If you look after it, and you still end up outperforming all the consoles for years to come, and you get loads more options. You can have as a big resolution as you want, the big monitors as you want. You can have multiple control options, multiple different keyboard choices, more control options, mod support from third parties. There's loads of way cheaper games on Steam and GOG.com and all that. That's why I really like playing on PC a lot compared to consoles these days. The only console I really play these days are like the retro consoles like Super Nintendo and GameCube and what have you. I haven't touched my Xbox One in God knows, I can't remember now, months and months ago. I just don't play it. Simply because you can get a lot of the games that are now coming out on Windows now, so why would I get the Xbox version when it's on Windows? And PS4, again, it's just sitting there, it's plugged in, but the only I'll end up playing Kingdom Hearts. That's the only thing that's coming out in January. But I'll just play everything on PC now these days. Does everything I want, plays all the games at high end, over 60 FPS, play on my mates, got access to Discord and Skype. Loads of browsing options, storage, not a problem, loads of storage options. It's wonderful. You can have as many monitors as you want. I've currently got 2. But yeah, that's why I like it. It's expensive, but PC gaming, if you get into it, you got yourself a decent rig. It's awesome. What will I do for my next rig? I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to even consider looking at my rig anymore for another 4 or 5 years. As I've said, I've already spent. I think I've picked the parts I wanted to make it last as long as possible, and then once the time comes around to upgrade, I'll think about like what I want to do. But I've done everything I want to do with it now. I am buying extra bits and pieces. Some stuff coming later in the week. I am upgrading my mouse and keyboard to something a bit better. And I am upgrading my Turtle Beach's headset. So it's the problem with this headset now is repeating myself an awful lot. A lot of the sound isn't coming through properly now. Like if I'm playing a game in surround sound, a lot of the external channels are not coming through properly anymore. And it's getting a bit like hissy and stuff in the speakers. It's getting a bit long in the tooth, these Turtle Beaches, so I am retiring them and I'm replacing them with something hopefully a bit better. So yes, and another crucial thing, I've also excuse me, I've also purchased for my rig, so for my videos and stuff, I've purchased what's it called, the HD60S capture card, which is it's a capture device which comes through. It records directly from HDMI, and you can use it for streaming and recording your footage. So I can actually do some streams for you guys now on Twitch or YouTube and vice versa, which is awesome. I will be looking at doing some recordings in the new year. I'm just deciding what to do. I am working on a new script for another video. That will be done in January, I hope. I am something to do with Donkey Kong Country. I am like one of the old videos I used to do where I wrote a script and stuff. Something I've been working on for quite a while, actually. I will get back to that in the new year. But like thanks to my capture card, I'm now actually able to record high definition footage from my FrameMeister, from my old consoles, and actually play and record at the same time and do some streaming, and also record footage for upcoming video projects, which is awesome. Again, another expensive bit of kit, but I think it's worth it. You can get it to work on Windows 7. People who might be interested, it doesn't say it's supported on the website, but you can get it to work with Windows 7 with like a weird workaround by not installing the program in the normal way, like an older version of the program anyway. You have to like use 7-zip and just like drag and drop the files manually and do it that way. There's a weird workaround you can do to get it to work on Windows 7. It does work. It records and plays everything fine, but with the glitch with the program is like the timer's constantly going round and round and round, so the timer's not quite right. It doesn't sync up with the footage, but that's a minor quibble. I don't use that anyway, the timer, but that's the only thing that doesn't work quite right on my machine, but with game capture footage, but program. But yeah, I can actually use Windows 7 to record my footage, which is awesome, because booting into a separate operating system is a pain in the arse when I've got all my editing software and everything else, all my games on Windows 7. It would be a lot more convenient to have it all on one operating system. And then once I do have to upgrade to Windows 10, I've already got it right there, all ready to go. I'll just have to make the transition, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Microsoft would have bloody fixed all the stupid fucking bugs on the bloody thing. It's a joke though. Beyond this point, really, Windows 10. It's just it works fine most of the time, but like every time I use it, I just get annoyed with it. Like it's always trying to run an update in the background, like. And they made the Pro version worse. They make all versions worse, but at least with the Pro version, what it used to be the case was you can actually push the updates back for a month. So if you're doing something important and you don't want Windows Update to like drain resources in the background without telling you, you can just push it back for a month, and then like when you got time, just let it run overnight or whatever. But now they've shortened it down to a week, so it's more annoying. So they're doing more updates. And for people who've got like data caps on their internet, it's infuriating because they're doing more updates more frequently. You keep end up burning through your internet cap if you haven't got unlimited internet, which quite a lot of people do have. They have metered internet, and like if they go over the cap, they get throttled, as my mate's got, which is really, really annoying. But thankfully we've got unlimited internet, but like not everyone has that luxury, and it's annoying for me. And apart from like running updates more frequently, you've also got. Bloody hell, was that my stomach rumbling? Oh, crikey. It drains a lot of resources, and like you're thinking like, why is my CPU like getting pegged awful time, and why is it using an awful lot of resources? It uses a lot of resources in the background. You might not know what it's doing. Your PC might be slow to boot up or whatever because it's trying to do updates all the time. It's really, really, even on a really powerful machine, it can like peg some of your resources back. Like, hang on, this should be a bit more quicker off the mark. It's like, oh, Windows updates, bloody pulling updates. It's taking bloody 1,200 years. It's really, really annoying. Windows 10. It's really, really annoying. But like, if you're a Windows person, you're sort of stuck with it. But like, I'm sticking with Windows 7 while they're still doing updates for it on the Skylake platform. Yeah, I'll just carry on using it. And like a lot of mainstream software still supports Windows 7. So if you still got 7, keep 7 until you absolutely have to like go to 10. There's no point upgrading to 10, or just do what I've done. Just have a separate Windows 10 partition. That's another option as well on your hard drive, or a separate hard drive or SSD or whatever you're using. So yeah, hate Windows 10. It's really, 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 really irritating. Bar humbug, etc., etc., etc. But anyway, that's the joys of PC gaming. It's a double-edged sword. There's loads of options. It's really cool, but like Windows 10 is a bag of shit. So if you can, get yourself a Windows 7 license, even with a new machine. It's a lot cheaper if you go for an older generation motherboard and CPU anyway. It's plenty fast enough for what you need. It runs all the games at high speed if you've got the right components. Mix and match, and off you go. As for Ryzen CPUs, I heard you can get Windows 7 to work with Ryzen, but I think there's a few compatibility issues, so you might want to do some research into that. The Ryzen CPUs are extremely good value now. You can get loads of and Threadripper and stuff as well, but I've stuck with Intel simply before ease of use, really, just because like Skylake's a good platform, even though it's Generation 7 and 8 are basically the same as Skylake, and Intel haven't really done much with their platform, which is really, really annoying. I've kept to Generation 6 Skylake because of like Windows. It plays nice with Windows 7. That's why I kept it. But yeah, like if you're looking into building a PC, just do your research, and if you need any pointers, I can always give you some pointers if you wanted to. I've built 3 or 4 machines now, like for myself and my brother and my cousin as well, and I've built a few other bits and pieces well in between that as well. So I've come across a few bits and pieces that can go wrong, and yes, and what sort of parts to go for. But AMD Threadripper is probably a good one to look out for in CPUs, because you get loads of cores and loads of threads. I think at the base you get 6 as a starting point now, which is crazy. I'm only still only on a bloody humble 4 quad core machine with 8 threads, but you can have 6 cores and 8 cores, and it's the amount of cores you can have now is pretty damn crazy. But yeah, for a quad core processor is probably plenty for most people, I think, for in terms of just gaming. If you're doing stuff like video editing and you're building a new machine for the first time, then definitely check out the AMD's offerings, because they're extremely good value, and it's nice to see a bit of competition and giving Intel a bit of a push, really, because they've been a bit lackluster in the last few generations of processors. They've been most of the same amount of cores and threads, and they're just more and more expensive for similar performance, really. So that's why I've stuck with Skylake. There's not much point spending double the amount for probably only about like 5 or 6% increase in performance, which is negligible, really. But there you go. So yeah, definitely look into. I'll turn the light off again. Wherever the switch is, it's there. There we go. If you're looking into upgrading your PC, definitely check out AMD's offerings in terms of processors, and they do good graphics cards as well. So there's definitely loads of options there. But anyway, I'm rambling and raving once again. I keep doing it. It's now nearly half an hour, but you know the drill by now. Me making these bloody videos, you just have it on as a podcast in the background, which is completely fine, as long as if you're interested and you're getting information, that's absolutely fine. Right. I think it's about time we should. I'll talk about. I'll do a top 5 because I haven't a top 5 gaming list of what I've been my top 5 favourite games I've been playing this year, because I haven't really played an awful lot of games this year. Again, mainly because I spent most of my money upgrading my rig. That was more my priority, and there wasn't a lot of great games out this year anyway. There's some real good ones this year, but they've been really spread out, in my opinion, to be honest. So not in any particular order. I'm going to go with what I can see on my desktop is Hitman 2. I'm quite a big fan of Hitman 2. It's not the original. I will address the elephant in the room. Why have they called it Hitman 2? There already is a Hitman 2. It's called Hitman 2 Silent Assassin. It's just, I hate it when game companies do that. When they do reboots and remakes of games, they use the same name they've already used before, like several decades ago or 10 or 15 years ago, just to confuse people who do an archiving. So I'll call it Hitman 2018. I'll call that just to keep it, so you know which game I'm on. Hitman 2018. I really enjoyed it. I haven't played all of it yet. I played Hitman 2016. That was when IO was still under the ownership of Square Enix. That is an interesting thing to talk about. Hitman 2018. Almost never happened because IO were in severe financial difficulty, which is sad to say. Hitman 2016 didn't do very well because that was when they were experimenting with the episodic format. And the idea was they were going to release an episode every week or so. There was 6 episodes in total, and so basically they did it they release episode 1, you pay for that, and then episode 2 you pay for that, so you pay for it in chunks. That was partially why a lot of people are saying it didn't do nowhere near as well as the previous entries in the series. I can agree with that. It's a lot of people were really hesitant to play Hitman 2016 because of the episodic format, and I can understand why for Hitman 2018 they've just gone back to the classic format and just releasing it all in one go and just releasing DLC and expansions later on down the road. So yeah, because Hitman 2016 was such a financial flop for them, Square Enix decided to cut ties with IO, and for a while, IO were like a bit touch and go really, but So there was talk of them a while from being bought out by like EA and a bunch of other companies, which would have been a disaster, or Blizzard, or any other, or Microsoft, or any other big company, which wouldn't have been good, to be brutally honest. But graciously, and rather surprisingly, I didn't think that was going to happen, but what Square Enix did was that they cut their ties with IO Interactive, but instead of like closing the company or folding the company or selling them on, they've let them go private once again, and they let them keep the Hitman IP, which is quite generous of them, which was quite gracious of them, to be brutally honest. I didn't expect them to do that, but they released them into the wild, and like, you're on your own now, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. They've let them keep the IP, but because of that, they no longer had Square Enix's financial backing, and they were like, they were going to talk of them like, are we actually going to make Hitman 2? They've had to like stay afloat. They've had to get rid of a lot of their employees, which is a damn shame, really. And they've actually released Hitman 2, and you can tell where they've had to cut corners, mainly the cutscenes. Mainly, in the first one they had fully 3D, fully rendered cutscenes, but now in the second one they're just like static, sort of semi-static paintings instead of for the cutscenes, instead of having fully animated and rendered cutscenes. That's where they've had to. I think that you can definitely see where they've had to like cut their budget back in the cutscenes. But thankfully, the gameplay itself is still intact from 2016. But the cutscenes, it is a bit jarring when you compare, when you play Hitman 1 directly into Hitman 2018. But because the cutscenes are like a drastically different quality, but the story is not that memorable anyway. But like that is an interesting point to bring up, like where they had to cut corners. But the gameplay is pretty much the same as the previous title, but they've basically improved the engine. So a lot of the mechanics seem to work a little bit better, and mechanically it's a bit tighter. And as a nice bonus, if you had Hitman 2016, you can play Hitman 2016 maps in Hitman 2 with brand new mechanics, including they've brought back the briefcase. We can use it as a throwable. I hope they don't fix that. There is a bug basically where it's like a homing case. You can lob your suitcase at somebody and it'll just chase them, and it'll just it'll bend round corners and stuff like. I've got to try and find a clip of that. If I can find it, I'll put a clip here. But you can throw your case and it'll chase someone down the street, and like it's like a homing briefcase. Not for 10 seconds. It will not stop until it hits its target, which is hilarious. It's fantastic. Hope they don't patch that, but they probably will. But anyway, that's one of the interesting. That's one of the best weapons in the game, and you can sneak weapons in and stuff. But Hitman 2, Hitman 2018 is one of my personal favourite games. It's like there's loads of replay value. The playing the classic maps in the Hitman 2 with new mechanics is also a nice bonus. And there's a few cool multiplayer components which I haven't really played, but I've seen a lot of other people playing them. It's quite good. You can basically two of you can go around a map and try and not defeat targets in like as quick as you can, in whatever means you can. And the person, like basically, the amount of time that you got to take out your targets shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and the person who manages to take out the target first is the winner basically. And like if the other person isn't quick enough, they're basically eliminated. But yeah, Hitman 2, I really like Hitman 2. It still has a few problems they need to iron out. There's quite a few bugs and stuff, but the amount of hours I've sunk into it, I'm still thoroughly into it, and I'm glad to see IO have survived. It would be really a real shame to see them fall under, but they've managed to turn it around, thankfully, hopefully. And they've managed to stay afloat, and Hitman 2 is, for the most part, a very successful game. One of my personal favourites of 2018. Definitely go check it out if you can, especially if you get it on sale. Try and you can get all the episodes in one go, and you can get the legacy maps from Hitman 2016 for like £10. I think if you didn't buy it, had it already, you can have the maps imported into Hitman 2. So that's one of them. Definitely should check out. Second game, going through my list on my desktop here, Return of the Obra Dinn. I don't know whether a lot of people have heard about this, but this is basically the second game from independent developer Lucas Pope. Now, some people might know who Lucas Pope is. He was the guy who made, pretty much on his own, the ever wonderful Papers, Please, which is basically a... best way I can describe it was a bureaucracy simulator where you basically play this checkpoint official in this made-up communist country called Stotska, and you have to check people's papers, like check people's paperwork, and like, oh, this isn't quite right and stuff, and you cross-reference it with that, like that doesn't seem quite right, and then you can either reject people's papers or let them in, and by checking all their paperwork and make sure everything's legit. And the further you get through the game, it gets more and more and more complicated. It adds more and more rules and more things to check out. And it sounds terrible in practice, but it's absolutely fantastically put together. It's like, again, with this new game he's made, it plays into that same mechanic. Where the premise sounds awful on paper, but it's executed so wonderfully and fantastic. It's one of the best puzzle games I've ever played. Return of Obra Dinn. It's absolutely fantastic. This time around, you play like this inspector. I think. What's the correct word? You play a sort of an inspector for an insurance company. It's set in the I think is it the 18th century or 19th? Well, it's set in the age of piracy, basically, in the 1800s. So that would be the 19th century. You play this insurance checker, auditor. That's the word I was looking for. Auditor. You play this auditor. Basically, a pirate ship called the Obra Dinn disappeared for several months, and nobody knows what happened to it. But then all of a sudden, it comes back into port with none of its crew members in sight. Everyone's vanished. So you're an auditor. You got to try and figure out what actually happened. And the way the gameplay works is you get back onto the ship, and you're given this magical puzzle, magical death watch thing, which allows you to travel back in time and play back these little vignettes of what actually happened. So you see a premonition. The watch will resonate. You activate the watch, and it will play like a mini vignette cutscene where you go try and figure out what happened. And it's all static images. So basically you might see a particular person like over there with like a pistol or whatever, and you also got like. It's like a you're looking around this diorama, and you've got to try and figure out who these people are by the actions, or it might not necessarily or by who spoke to who, or basically what they're wearing. And the tricky bit of the puzzles is not all the information is given to you. Some of it is like guesswork, and some of it you got to try and figure out by logic and by. So, for example, like all the cutscenes are linked together, and you might see, for example, one of the shipmen shoot the captain or whatever. And but you'll know who the captain is. Just an example. You know who the captain is by what he's wearing and what kind of hat he's wearing. So, oh, that's definitely the captain, and like he looked regal. This guy's the captain. But you might not necessarily know who the captain is called. But you might be able to figure it out by like the actions that relate to what the captain did or what something's happening to the captain, for example. So it's difficult to explain, but it's so wonderful. Like by playing through these little vignettes, and by little and like you also got a guidebook, which for example. It will tell you like all the glossary of terms of like who's on the ship. You got like a list of everyone who's on the ship, and you got to try and fill in all the gaps. So you know, for example, there's like 2 or 3 shipmen, but you don't know which one's which. They might appear in like a really obscure part of the diorama you're trying to look through, and not all the information is given to you. So like some of the crew members are so obscure they're really really hard to figure out. But like by guesswork and elimination, then. The actions of what happens, and you might have like a picture of what happened on the ship. You know definitely if it happened on the ship, and you match everything together. But hopefully I'm making it sound interesting to you. But like it's very difficult to explain. But like you have to play it for yourself. It's absolutely wonderful. Is it better than Papers, Please? Maybe. They're both fantastic games, but Return of Obra Dinn it might be Lucas Pope's best work. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm definitely going to play it through again and actually probably do a let's play of that, but it's absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it. I think it's really cheap now. It's only an indie game. I think it's only like £15, but it's and another crucial thing about it is it looks like an old, like the old 8-bit and 16-bit computers, but like the especially like the Apple II and the monochromatic 8-bit computers. It's got like on old IBMs and stuff like that. It's designed. It looks like an old game from that era, if like they were powerful enough to run 3D graphics, but like it's set like an old. It looks like an old 8-bit computer game. It's all 3D rendered and modelled, but it's got like a monochromatic filter, so it makes it look really interesting. But like if you play a game like that, play Return of the Obra Dinn, and just to get a feel for it. I don't want to spoil what happens in it, but it's in terms of puzzle games, it's one of the best that's ever been made. It's up there in terms of with Portal 1 and Portal 2 and Tetris, and it's absolutely fantastic. I 100% recommend Return of Obra Dinn. Wonderful. That's my second choice. Third game, third favourite game. Again, these are not in any particular order. Third game, 2 Point Hospital. 2 Point Hospital, another fantastic, cracking little title. If you played Theme Hospital all those years ago, you'll feel right home with 2 Point Hospital. A lot of the old designers have created a new company called 2 Point Games, I think they're called. And a lot of the old designers from Theme Hospital have come back and they've made 2 Point Hospital. And there hasn't been a proper hospital business sim, a good one at least anyway, for several years, and 2 Point Hospital really does hit the spot. Now, if you've played Theme Hospital, of course, you'll feel right at home playing this new iteration. I'm just checking the recording. It's alright, it's still recording. Bit worried there. You'll feel right at home playing this new iteration. Like you still build rooms and you still hire staff, but there's a lot. The micromanagement is a lot more in depth this time around, especially in terms of how skilled the staff are and what particular traits they've got. So the problem with Theme Hospital was basically. Because there's only 3 main traits, sorry, not traits, I should call them professions that you can have. You could have juniors, doctors, or consultants. That's for doctors, and you've also just got nurses, but they're just basically nurses and receptionists and janitors, of course. But the main issue with Theme Hospital is that you can basically farm it. If you've watched I've done a Let's Play with Adventure Game Fan 8. It took us ages, but you can watch that to learn what I mean. But a good easy way to win that was basically just to farm consultants. Now you've only got three professions. You've got researcher, which you can place in the research department. You've got psychiatrists, which of course you need them to put in the psychiatry room. And what was the other one? Psychiatry, research, surgeon. You need surgeons to put in the surgery. But so basically, once you've researched everything, once you've maxed everything out, you don't need researchers anymore. So basically, you can get rid of all your researchers, and all you needed to do was just buy a load of juniors with no skills whatsoever, really cheaply, put a load of them in the retraining room, and just have a guy that's good in both psychiatry and surgeons. So you just put a guy in there, train up a load of juniors, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. You've got loads of really high-powered doctors, and you can basically break the game doing that. Provided you don't hire too many, you can overspend. I have done that a couple of times, but that's an easy way to win the game. You can just maximise, or you just hire a load of juniors, train them all up as psychiatrists and surgeons, and you can put them anywhere in the hospital basically, because you don't need researchers anymore, because you can just demolish the research department once it's all done, and just build another GP's office there or whatever. But that was an easy way to break the game basically. But 2 Point Hospital gets rid of that problem by adding a hell of a lot more traits. So you can no longer just farm just a couple of traits. So you've still got surgeon, you've still got psychiatrists, you've still got researchers, but you've also got they've also got personality traits, and they've also got additional perks that other doctors and nurses and receptionists don't have anymore. Like, one doctor might be polite, which gives you perks like that. They might have good, not table manners, not thinking of food again, table manners. They might have good, they might be very polite with their patients, so they might get like a 10% bonus when, 10% happiness bonus when talking to patients. The patients get the happiness bonus. That might be one of them. Another one might be just like really clever, like really diligent, and like really good at diagnosing people. So you can have a diagnosis skill, which will give you 10%. If they're in a GP's room, they might get a 10% diagnosis buff, whereas like a standard doctor won't have that, and stuff like that. So there's also loads of traits like that, which you have to like balance. Like, so you can't just like farm particular traits. You have to like have like a really wide range of abilities across your workforce, which makes it a lot more interesting. And of course, you might have, like, for example, you might have a fantastic GP who's got like a complete level 5 maxed out diagnosis skill, but he's absolutely terrible. He's always grumpy, so you might get like a minus 10% happiness buff, or like the patient talking to the doctor or nurse might just get really unhappy all of a sudden, even though they've diagnosed their problem really quick. So there's trade-offs like that you got to think about, and it's not always easy to hire all the staff. I don't think it was much of an issue in Theme Hospital. I think it was because I don't think that mechanic worked properly anyway, especially in the Core 6TH builds. It was supposed to in the original game anyway. It was supposed to work where you could hire a bunch of people, and basically like the competing hospitals in the area would also hire all the doctors from the same pool that you're hiring from, but I don't think that mechanic worked properly. So basically it was just more basic, so you had a month to hire a particular set of doctors and it'll get refreshed. So but it was in this one, they've changed it in such a way where like it's reputation based, so you got to get to a certain level, prestige level. Like you might have to earn a certain amount of cash or have a certain amount of rooms before you can actually hire like certain skill sets of doctors, and even then you still might not get the doctors or nurses that you're after. So it's a lot more difficult that way. Sometimes you have to hire doctors with like somewhat like dodgy traits, like they might be grumpy or they might be lazy, where they might take trips to the toilet more often. That's one of the traits. Like they might need the toilet more often. So you got to build around your hospital, around your staff a lot more, which is a lot more interesting. It's you have to think about that a lot more, and it's a lot. The workforce is a lot more balanced now. So nurses have a much greater role, which is great. So instead of like certain rooms have also the traits have been changed as well. So like in Theme Hospital you might need a nurse, but this time you might need a nurse and a doctor, or a nurse instead of a doctor. So nurses are a lot more fairly represented this time around, which is it's a lot better. You can have male and female nurses and male and female doctors. That's another crucial thing that they didn't do in Theme Hospital. I don't know whether that was a design choice or whether they didn't have enough time or whatever, but like it's a lot more realistic in that sense. Like you can have male and female doctors across all roles in the hospital. So maintenance staff, you can have male and female, doctors male and female, nurses male and female. You understand? Which is it's just stuff like that. It makes it they've a lot more quality of life improvements they've over Theme Hospital. So it still has a few annoying gripes, I suppose. Like you start to play the same way each time. It can get a little bit repetitive if you play it for several hours at a time. It is a much bigger game than Theme Hospital, I will say that. And if you start to get in the same routines. Like you find that particular strategy works the best, and you stick to that, and you don't tend to deviate from that a lot. They do change the formula up a little bit in certain levels, where they change up the formula a little bit. Where, for example, one level is basically a training hospital, where you've basically got to train up your workforce from scratch. There's no standard doctors or nurses to choose from. You actually have to get consultants in. You can hire consultants like from third parties if you want, or use your own doctors if you want, consultants, and train your own workforce. So you've got to get on the training straight away, level up your juniors. They've got no skills whatsoever, but you've got to give them the traits and the skills, and then you work. That's quite a difficult level, but that's a really entertaining level. And there's also another level where it's basically a public health service sort of level. Whereas most of the levels, it's the US-based medical system where you get patients have to pay for their care, but on a particular level, this particular level, the NHS sort of style level, it's in reverse. You're given a set amount of cash each month, I believe, and you don't get payment from treatment because you get a set amount of funding and you have to use that. You don't get anything else. You don't get payment from patients like paying for treatment because like it's a public health service sort of level. So that's another interesting spin they put on it. But that's the only gripe. You tend to like get yourself set in a particular style of play, and a lot of the time it doesn't like force you to like think outside the box or change your strategy, because you always find one that works the best most of the time anyway. But even so, it's a very games like that, it's a very well accomplished hospital sim. It's very funny, and it hits the theme hospital spot just right. It's a theme hospital 2.0, I think it's fair to say, which is not a bad thing at all. Theme Hospital is a fantastic game. It's one of my personal favourites of all time, but this is more a modern interpretation with extra bells and whistles on top, and it's a lot bigger game as well. So thoroughly recommend 2 Point Hospital on that one. It's another fantastic little cracking little game. So yeah, there's my three choices. What else am I doing as a fourth choice? Trying to remember now. This is why I should always write things down. And of course, there are other games I haven't played as of yet, simply because I haven't had time or just never bothered playing them. Red Dead Redemption 2, that's one. It's not in my list. I haven't played it simply because I'm hoping for a PC version. Fingers crossed. There is rumours of a PC version in the works, but I don't know how true that's going to be. There is I think some people have been teasing a PC version, but I don't know how true that is. There's a few other bits and pieces I just haven't played because never got round to it really. What else? I'm struggling at the moment because a lot of the games I've been playing are like from 2017 and not 2018. Like for example, Nier Automata, that came out last year. That's a fantastic game, but that's 2017. That doesn't count. I'll talk about this one. I don't know whether this counts because Deltarune is not really it's not a full game as yet. It's only chapter 1. But where else am I going to talk about Deltarune? Again, it left an impression, so I will talk about that one. Deltarune. For people who've played Undertale, is it okay to talk about Undertale now? It came out 3 years ago now. Can I actually talk about it without people whining either way? Which is unfortunate. Undertale was one of those games where it got heaps and heaps of praise thrown at it, and it put off a lot of people because of the way the fandom acted on the internet and stuff, and it put a lot of people off, which is a real shame. Because I will say Undertale is one of my all-time personal favourite games of all time. For people who don't know, it's a little indie game that Toby Fox programmed over the space of 2 or 3 years, I believe. An RPG. The premise was where you don't have to kill things. Where Undertale it is fantastic. I've still got it installed on my machine. It basically turned a lot of the RPG tropes on its head, and it played around with your perceptions of RPGs, using really cool tricks, using either through a bit of dialogue or switching. Messing around with the user interface and stuff like that. All sorts of little tricks that it did to play around with the RPG tropes, and I absolutely adored it because it was so clever and original. Even though it looks basic. I'm putting it politely. It looks probably like a 8-bit game or whatever, put together. But that's the sort of charm of it, really. I suppose it's really despite its basic looking charms and stuff. Basic looking charms. It has so much depth to it, and the dialogue's fantastic, and the interplay between the characters, you really feel for the characters, and the different kinds of runs you can do with it. Like you can do pacifist runs and genocide runs if you're really feeling, if you don't have a soul. I couldn't do a genocide run. I just couldn't do it because the premise behind that is like, since I played it basically normally, Undertale, I played it. I'm one of the lucky ones where I played Undertale without any preconceptions about it. I played it not knowing what it was about, but a lot of other people did. I played it basically completely blind, and I uncovered a lot of its secrets on my own without looking at a walkthrough or guide, which is the best way to experience it if you haven't played it already. But a lot of people. It's sort of like a lot of people like threw a lot of praise onto it, and what annoyed me about it was a lot of people were doing like trying to playing it for the first time. Like, I'll do a let's play of Undertale. People were saying, "Oh, we should play it." Like, people getting really pissy, like, because they weren't playing it their way, the quote unquote correct way, when the game is up for interpretation and it allows you to play however you want. You can do a bit of a mix if you want, a bit of a kill a few things here and there, and just mess around with a few things, or play it as a pacifist if you want to. It's totally fine. But people really like getting pissy in the comments, like, you're playing it the wrong way. Playing it the wrong way. You should play it that way. Play it as a pacifist, or whatever. And like putting a lot of people off, which really annoyed me. People still do that. Why people do that really annoys me. People should be able to play games how they want. But anyway, that's partly why like the Undertale fandom has gotten a bit of a reputation. Like, it's sort of really irritated me. That's what irritates me personally, anyway. But anyway, so Undertale, fantastic game, and Deltarune. I talked about Undertale just to establish that makes sense. Deltarune is like Undertale 2 or Undertale 0, I suppose. I don't know whether it's a prequel or a sequel or a alternative universe. Personally, I think it's an alternative universe. It's still set in Undertale universe, but a lot of the characters you've seen in Undertale, if you play it makes sense to play Undertale first, but you don't have to. But if you've played Undertale first, you've got more of an understanding of some of the lore, which does. I think I do recommend playing Undertale first before you play Deltarune. But yeah, a lot of the characters from Undertale are making a reappearance in Undertale, but in different ways or different roles and stuff. So, but I think it's an alternative universe because like a lot of the characters are there from the previous game, but they're in different. Some of the interactions that you were aware of in the previous game never happened, or happened in a different way. Like, some things are different, but some things are the same, but not quite the same. If that makes sense, but probably doesn't. But I don't want to spoil it anyway. But Delta, I think it's an alternative universe, but like you get a sense of familiarity. You can tell it's an Undertale game, but it's like new set of characters this time around. So there's a brand new party system. Where it was just like a one-on-one sort of system in the first game. It's you now got a party system where you got two other characters with you, and you're fighting against different characters. So Delta's Rune is probably best described as Undertale 2 or Undertale 0. So you've got the different party members, and like it's still playing it's playing the Undertale tune, where like it's playing around with RPG mechanics, and like it's playing around with like your preconceptions of RPGs, but thematically it's different. The dialogue is still very funny, and again, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't played it already, but like there's a lot of improvements that they've included, but you can still tell it's an Undertale game, but it's not quite. It's Undertale, but it's not. That's what I will say. But Deltarune is a really interesting one because it's not a full game, as I've said. It's Toby Fox just released it completely out of the blue as a sort of quite a substantial demo as it is. It's chapter 1 as it is at the moment, but he might change it for the full release of Deltarune, or if he might call it something else. But he's released it basically. Deltarune is as it is chapter 1. He's released it as. He released it completely free. You don't have to pay for it. It's completely free. He released it out of the blue just before Halloween on the 30th or the 31st October. Released it out of the blue, and like it's just there. There you go. Enjoy it. There you go. It's such a Toby Fox thing to do. I think it's just like I'm really excited for it. Deltarune I've played, even though it's not as long as Undertale. For a demo, it's really quite substantial. It's about 3 or 4 hours long, and Undertale's only about 6 or 7 if you play it standard way, and it was just a single playthrough. But for Chapter 1, for just one chapter, and it's free, it's quite substantial. And there is tons of replay value, and there's loads of secrets, as with Undertale. There's a lot of untapped lore that you may or may not come across. If you play a game a slightly different way, you might find a little bit of dialogue you might not have seen before. If you've done an action differently from previously, I played Undertale with my friend Adventure Game Fan 8. We did a complete, not complete. So we did a playthrough of that on her channel. I think I'll do a link to that somewhere. You can watch that if you like, and to get a sense of what Deltarune is like. I do recommend playing Undertale first. It's quite cheap at the moment. I think it's like £7 or something. It's always been cheap. It's only a small indie game. But if you play Undertale first, I think you'll have a much greater appreciation of Deltarune. But you don't. It's not essential. But I do recommend it personally. But Deltarune, it's only a teeny little game. It's only a teeny little demo. But I'm really excited to see how it plans out. But the only unfortunate thing is because this chapter has taken far longer to make this demo on its own compared to the entirety of Undertale, because it's a lot more advanced. The graphics are definitely way improved, like the sprites are more detailed and the backgrounds are more detailed. Because he still did it on his own, but it's a lot more intricate and quite a bit more advanced for a game maker game anyway. It's going to take him a hell of a lot longer to put it together, so I think Toby Fox is looking into getting additional help to help him put the game together. So we probably won't see Deltarune again for probably at least another 3 or 4 years, unfortunately, if that, probably longer, to see where he's actually going to go with it. I don't know whether he has said he might change how Chapter 1 plays out, or he might keep it the same, or he might alter a few things again for the final release. But I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with Deltarune. But for a free demo, he's already got my appetite. I'm really excited for Deltarune. I consider that my 4th choice. Even where else I'm going to talk about Deltarune really, but as a free demo / introduction game thing for free, you can't complain. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Just uninstall it off. That's it. But it's a wonderful little game, and I just hope that Deltarune doesn't fall foul of the same toxicity that its fandom has sort of gained a reputation for. But I will talk about a little bit later on toxicity of different fandoms, but that's probably a topic for another day. But I'll think about it. I might talk about it later. Already done an hour. Feature-length vlogs. I've invented feature-length vlogs. I just ramble and rave for ages and ages and ages. But anyway, yeah. So Deltarune, that's my 4th choice. What would be my final choice? I guess it'll have to be, just to keep it at nice 5. That'll have to be Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. Again, that's probably an obvious one, to be brutally honest. That came out on the 7th. I booked off before I broke up from work about last week. I booked off a day on Friday just to play Smash Brothers, and it's wonderful. The only Smash game I haven't played is the original one, but I've played Melee, Brawl, Smash 4, Smash 4, the Wii U one and the 3DS one, and of course Ultimate. I have to say I do believe it is the most definitive iteration of Smash Brothers has ever been. People are going to say, "Oh, Melee is the best." I will get into that. But it's not perfect. But in terms of, I will get to that. But in terms of mechanics, the way that the animations play out, and the way how smooth it is, and how comprehensive it is. It's got 70-odd different characters to choose from, and all of the levels, pretty much. That's why it's called Ultimate. Apart from 1 or 2, but it's got every single character that's ever been in any Smash game. Everyone's back, including the third-party characters. They're all back. Sakurai's have got all the contracts already. Everybody's back. Snake's back. Bayonetta's back. Sonic's back, and Cloud's back and everybody. Every single person that's been in Smash in the past is now back. Even the ones that were cut in previous iterations, like in Brawl and Smash 4. Wolf's back as well. Mewtwo's back, and everyone's back. So you've got a huge roster of characters to play from, 70 odd, I lost count how many, with another 5 on the way in terms of DLC, which is awesome. One's already been announced. That guy from Persona 5. I haven't played it. Again, that's another one I haven't played. Is it Joker? His name is from Persona 5. He's going to be in it. That was quite a surprise. I didn't expect that, to be fair, but awesome. That's a left field choice from Sakurai, but I'm all for that. New interesting characters. That's awesome. So he's going to be in it. With that in mind, with Joker being now in Smash Brothers, I reckon there's got to be a Persona 5 port on the way for Switch. There's got to be, because Smash Brothers has always been a really good marketing vehicle for the characters that were in it. So and as they do with like Isabelle, like from Animal Cross, another strange choice, but cool, why not? They use that as a jumping off point, like as they did with the trailer, like with Tom Nook looking at the monitor, and Isabelle gets invited into Smash Brothers, and like Tom Nook looking at the monitor, and then the trailer ends with Animal Crossing Switch 2019. That's it. So it's a really good marketing vehicle for like other games for the characters that are within it. So you've got Isabelle, you've got Animal Crossing coming up, and with that, I reckon Persona 5 has got a fighting chance of being released in some capacity, like a special port for the Switch. I reckon that is on the horizon. Nothing's been announced as of yet of this recording this video, but I'm pretty sure there will be a Persona 5. Watch this space for Smash Brothers. But anyway, so loads of characters to choose from, loads of levels, pretty much every single level again from past entry, apart from like 2 or 3 that were just duff ones anyway. They're all back as well. So you got all the Melee levels, all the Smash 4 levels, apart from a few, 1 or 2. But for all intents and purposes, you've got the entire caboodle to play with. There's a lot more customization options. Tournament mode's back as well, which is awesome. You can play 32-player tournaments in your own home if you want to set that up. Loads of control options. It plays fantastically. It's wonderful. It's just mechanically, it's the best Smash Brothers it's ever been. It's not perfect. I will get into the niggles, but it's still 100% recommended. It's not perfect, I will say this. It is a shame that some of the external tertiary... I will say this is nitpicking. The amount of content that they've given you. Like, crikey O'Reilly, but to nitpick seems petty, but I will air my gripes. A few ones I do have. It's a shame that trophies are no longer in it, but I can understand why they've got rid of it. The trophies, because basically they're kind of redundant now. With like, if you want to know the history of a character, you just look up Wikipedia or whatever and like load up the article. Way more comprehensive. But it's just a shame they're not in it anymore. That's a minor quibble. Spirits Mode, the new single player game, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's massive. There's loads of gameplay. I do like the mechanics of Spirits Mode, where you can basically equip special abilities from these like stickers, basically spirit stickers that you can equip to your character, which might give you like increased attack power or reduced increased defense or immunity to the special stage hazards that might be applicable and stuff like that. But it is a bit of a slog, Spirits Mode, because if you play it for several hours at a time, it just keeps going and going and going and going, and it does get a bit of a grind, to be brutally honest, after a certain amount of time playing Spirits Mode. So I've played probably about 8 hours of Spirits Mode, I think, and I'm probably only about halfway through it. It's just like, bloody hell. I've still got loads to do. I will get back to it, but it is a bit of a slog, I will say that, Spirits Mode. I would have preferred, personally, a more smaller adventure mode, like sort of Melee sort of format, but again, it is a minor quibble. It for people who like loads of content, it's all there. And it's a shame there's no event matches either, like special little curated event matches where you can unlock special characters. It's a shame there's nothing like that, and there's no extra modes such as I'm ashamed there's no hit the targets mode. I'm gutted that didn't come back, and there's no home run practice mode either, which is a shame. Again, a minor quibble, but I'm a little bit gutted those modes didn't make a comeback, especially since targets mode was terrible in Brawl and what have you. But what is there is fantastic. and with DLC planned and already locked in stone, planned, ready for Smash Brothers. There's more content on the way. You can buy them all You can buy them all right now. I think like for like 20 quid or something. I think it is. With 5 levels, new stages being released, and 5 new characters. Of course, Joker's already been announced from Persona 5, so there's 4 left to be announced. I don't know who's the remaining 4 are going to be. I don't know whether I mentioned this before. I reckon maybe a character from maybe Sans from Undertale, maybe. Because of course, like again with the marketing vehicle sort of thing, as I've mentioned, because of course they've only very recently released the physical release of Undertale on Switch, which I've purchased, of course. But it's still in its wrapping, basically, on the shelf. But like I've already played the PC version several times, but I just wanted it for Switch, you know, because I wanted to support Toby Fox, because I love his stuff, his project. So I bought it again, of course. But I reckon Sans from Undertale's got within a shout. Some people reckon Sora from Kingdom Hearts. I don't see it happening, to be brutally honest. Simply because, well, of course, Square Enix is, of course, like they've got Castlevania characters, of course, in there. No, sorry, that's Konami. Sorry, Square Enix. They've got Final Fantasy Cloud. They've got Cloud in there, right? Of course. So you've got Square Enix. I can see them being okay with it, but don't forget, Kingdom Hearts is a Disney property as well. It's both Square Enix and Disney. So Square Enix can say, "Oh yeah, we'll do it. You can. That'll be cool. We can advertise the new Kingdom Hearts." But the only reason why I'd say that I can see them doing that is if they've got Kingdom Hearts 3, a version of Kingdom Hearts 3 planned for the Switch. And again, with that, I don't see that happening either. But of course, Disney will want a major cut. I can see. Logistically, Smash Bros. Ultimate is already a nightmare and a half as it is to get what we've already got. All the third-party characters, they've already been in Smash Bros. They're back as well. So Konami will want to cut, Square Enix want to cut, Capcom will want to cut with their characters as well, and Sega as well. So to get what they've got already is an achievement. To get all that logistically from a contractual agreement. Like you're allowing us to use your characters. Smash Brothers, of course, is because Smash Brothers is such a huge franchise. Nintendo got a lot of leeway on that front, but again, it's not infinite. And my point is, I was saying to someone on Twitter the other day, is that I don't see the Sora from Kingdom Hearts happening because I think I can see Disney being like, Disney probably would allow it, but I'm saying like their asking price to allow Sora to appear in Smash Brothers wouldn't even with the cost of the DLC thrown in the mix as well, wouldn't be enough to make it financially worthwhile. I don't think, personally, and that they would do it if there was a Kingdom Hearts 3 being planned for the Switch. But again, I don't know whether the Switch has got the horsepower to really pull off a viable version of Kingdom Hearts 3. I might be wrong on that, as I say, because with Smash Ultimate runs like a dream. It's a brand new engine. It's optimised for the ARM architecture. I think it uses ARM processors. I think the Switch does. But it's not Intel or x86. It's a custom Tegra NVIDIA chipset sort of thing setup with ARM processors. So maybe with optimisations and maybe if they reduce the fidelity, maybe they can make it work. But I'm just thinking maybe I don't know whether the Switch has got like the processing oomph with the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4 and the Pro, or the Xbox One X even, to make it viable. I don't know whether that's doable or not. But we'll see. Maybe they can make it work, possibly. But we'll see. But that's mainly the reason why I think it'd be too expensive for them to license Sora. And Kingdom Hearts 3, they'll only do it to advertise Kingdom Hearts 3, but if it's not powerful enough to run Kingdom Hearts 3, then there's not much point going down that route, if that makes sense. So I don't see that being likely. Banjo and Kazooie, I don't even consider them in the race. Again, it's a not Microsoft IP. Why the hell would they allow Nintendo to have use their IP? It makes no sense. that's not to say like it. Of course, in recent years and stuff that they're allowing cross-platform play. That they're being civil. They're not being like with Sony, a bit more spiky. Like, oh, you have to with Fortnite and what have you. Like not allowing players cross-platform play with the games and stuff. Like Microsoft are being more open. They're allowing like Minecraft players, for example, to play with Switch players and PC players and what have you. They're being civil on that front at least. So I can understand that, but there's no reason for them to allow Nintendo to use their IP, like because they're not getting anything out of it. Like, why would they do that? So Banjo-Kazooie, that's a no. That's not going to happen. Goku, I'm just throwing that in there. No, it's not happening. It's not happening. Just not happening. Again, licensing fees will be astronomical, and he's not a video game character. He originated in an anime and the manga and stuff. So again, it's Toei would probably like charge through the arse to license Goku. So no, that's not happening either. Excuse me. But so those are out. I don't know who else it could be really. What would be really awesome, in my opinion, is maybe they like for the 5th and final DLC. I don't know whether they'll be the biggest jokers on the planet if they pull this off, but maybe Waluigi is already a assist trophy. But hear me out. Maybe for the 5th DLC, the 5th and final DLC at the end of the year, he gets promoted to full player status. Well, how awesome would that be? Just aha, we fooled you. Waluigi's actually we had him planned all along. Just to tease Nintendo fans. Just they love the narrative of like Waluigi being the underdog and not being appreciated and stuff. So that'll play into that narrative perfectly. And he becomes like he's no longer an assist trophy. He's now a fully functional player character. That would awesome that would be. That'll be an amazing left field sort of thing. And again, not forgetting the Piranha Plant. That's coming out as free DLC if you register the game, of course, before the end of January. I think you should get it for free. Otherwise, it's like a $5, I think. Yeah, I like left field choices, but Waluigi, that'll be such an awesome reversal. But yeah, with the addition of Joker from Persona 5, like, it's looking interesting. I don't know who the other 4 are going to be. We've already spoiled rotten with the roster that we've got already. Who would I want personally in Smash Brothers that's not already in there? Fire Emblem's like crazy overrepresented, so I can't think of anything. I really can't think of who the other 4 could be. Really, that would be viable financially to make it worthwhile to bring them in. Like not excluding third parties, of course. A slim chance, maybe someone from Overwatch again. Maybe if Blizzard decided to release a version of Overwatch for the Switch, is it doable again? Though I don't really know. Again, does the Switch have enough horsepower to make a version of Overwatch viable to make bringing a character in from that to advertise that game makes sense? But I don't really know. Maybe of course, like the trademark character Tracer from Overwatch, maybe within a shout, maybe. I'm really stumped for choices, really, because we've already been given a massive roster of characters to choose from, really. So, yeah, so I think that's a complete mystery, but like probably. Maybe I'd probably say my Waluigi's my trump card, I suppose. That would be an interesting reversal. Or maybe Leon from Resident Evil or someone like that, perhaps. Maybe. We'll just have to see on that one. But yeah, so Smash Brothers. I don't think I've got anything else to really add to that, really. But other than that, it's a fantastic title. If you've got a Switch, definitely recommend playing it. I haven't tried the online component. I don't know how good it is, but I'm still weighing up whether is it worth firing £20 just to play it every now and then online when I'd rather play it locally. We'll say this though. There's a really strange thing that Nintendo were doing with the GameCube adapters. Over here, you can't buy them now for some reason. They cancelled. I ordered my 2 from Amazon, but they pulled them from sale for some reason. I don't know why that is. So I had to eventually import 2 from the States. one on my Amazon account, America Amazon account, and I had to use my dad's account because there was limit one per customer. But I wanted one from my brother as well, so I had to like go around the long way around to get that sorted. But anyway, I've now got two GameCube adapters. I'm just really annoyed about the people who want to use GameCube pads. Have to use third-party alternatives when they would rather used the official Nintendo one, which is really annoying. So you had to go through that rigmarole of actually importing one or two. But anyway, that's I don't know what Nintendo are doing with that. But they did something similar with Smash 4 as well. The adapters were stupidly hard to get a hold of. The one I actually managed to get a hold of goes for stupid money now, like about £60 or £70, the official one. The third-party adapters apparently work absolutely fine, but I can't comment on that because I don't have one. In terms of mileage, apparently the May Flash one's a really good one to go for because it also can use it on the Dolphin emulator as well if you change the mode at the back of it, which is pretty cool. So you can use it at the PC and the Switch as well, which is awesome. But anyway, I've got no comment on that because I don't actually have one to test, but apparently that's the one to go for, apparently, the May Flash adapter. But yeah, I've now got the official ones, and now I can actually play with GameCube pads, which is this is the way to play Smash. If you ask me, play with the official GameCube controls. I've still got some really good ones in good condition, and they work really well. But Smash Ultimate, fantastic. It's the best Smash it's ever been. Loads of content, loads of levels, and it's one of the best party games, easily. And I can see us playing that for hours and hours on end over the next coming days, especially when I'm having family members come over to play party games and stuff. So yeah, those are my 5 choices. Definitely check those 5 choices out. So Deltarune, Smash Brothers, 2 Point Hospital, Return of Obra Dinn, and what was the first one? Hitman 2. So check out those awesome titles. So yes, those are my 5 recommendations for 2018. Definitely check those out. I think I've been talking for quite a long time, but probably I'll talk about the just to wrap things up as a bar humbug Scrooge would do. Just to wrap things up, I'll probably talk about the thing I don't like about 2018. The only thing I can really talk about in terms of like the Christmas gaming turkey is Bethesda. What the hell are they playing at? With the debacle over Fallout 76 and its tertiary products and marketing, it's all gone to pot, hasn't it, with them? Crikey, it's absolutely how much contempt they've treated their customer base with is absolutely staggering. It's, of course, that's not talking about the game itself. The game itself is absolutely terrible. It's where do I start with this? It's crazy. Well, okay. So first of all, Fallout 76 is released to generally universally panned. It's released in a very broken and buggy state, as Bethesda games usually are, but this one in particular is a very sorry state. It looks terrible. The frame rate problems are on all versions of the game, PC and console. Constant server disconnects, people losing their progress because it's not saving on the servers properly. PvP like being buggy and broken. People falling through the map. VAT's not working properly. The list goes on. That's just a few of the things, like widescreen support not working. It's an absolute shit show. I'm absolutely staggered. Even for Bethesda standards, this is an absolute abysmal show from them. And so it's been released to critically panned by pretty much most people. Even the most dedicated Fallout fans are starting to think, yeah, this is not good, is it? And it worries me for future releases from them, like including Elder Scrolls 6. So whatever that, they're using the same dated engine. They haven't changed for years. I think the game creation engine is basically a derivative of Game Brio engine, which itself was dated even when New Vegas came out, and that was buggy up the arse as well. Even though I really do love New Vegas, it's a great game. But my point is they're unwilling to update their technology, and they keep releasing games in hideously unplayable states and terrible states, and people are I think are losing patience with them now, and That's just the game itself. And with the collector's edition of Fallout 76, how that fell apart. They did of course, it's common for collector's editions to be released for games, but this one in particular is a real stinker. Basically, Bethesda promised people who purchase the collector's edition of the game, where you get like the Model B, I think it is, of the power armor helmet thing, which looks pretty cool, to be fair. And you're supposed to get a canvas bag, but their excuse, near the last minute, they decided to change the material to a crappy nylon bag. Like the same material that you get. Those ponchos you get at theme parks. Those plastic coat things with hats that you get at theme parks when it's pissing it down. Like you get them at Disney World and stuff like that. You can buy them for like a couple of dollars each and just put them on. Just disposable things. The crappy nylon plastic crappy stuff. They changed the material of the bags to that, basically. A nylon trash bag, basically. And when it was supposed to be a nice material canvas bag. So they changed it last minute, the materials, and people saying, where's my canvas bag? This isn't canvas, this is nylon crap. This is shite. And the backlash they got back from that, Bethesda eventually caved. They caved in the end after about like a month or so of like people like, this is unacceptable, which is rightly so. People are complaining, you advertise canvas in your marketing, it says canvas bag, and what's this? This is nylon crap shit. And so they're actually going to do the canvas bags now. Like in 4 to 6 months' time, you will be getting, if you register your complaint or request on through the Bethesda website, which I'll get to in a moment. There's more. Register your request for the canvas bag through the website. You can have a canvas bag in 4 to 6 months. So they won't be shipping those until like probably June or July-ish next year, which is hilarious. But you will be getting your canvas bag eventually. So I don't know why Bethesda decided to do the switch. Their excuse was there wasn't enough materials available, but there is now. So that clearly wasn't an excuse, was it? It was just basically trying to cheap out and see if he can get away with it, and like it backfired immensely. That's what really bothers me, the contempt that people give in the hardcore fans of their game. They decided to do the old bait and switch, like at the last minute, like, we're going to skimp on materials and just make these crappy nylon things, and they'll be happy with that. That's fine. That'll be $100. Thank you very much. But now it's cost them. They've made the nylon bags, and now they're having to make the replacement canvas bags, which is what they should have been in the fucking first place. But anyway, so they're now doing the canvas bags. So in 6 months' time, they're going to be releasing those for people who go for the website. It's only a limited thing, though. Don't forget. So if you don't register your interest like before the end of January, you don't get it. So you better, if you want your canvas bag, you better like make your case. No, but register your request form. So it gets worse. The website I was talking about, Bethesda's website. People who are like registering, like asking for the canvas, the proper canvas bag. The website wasn't secure, so people were able to see other people's transactions and requests on the website. So a person who like also wanted to request a canvas bag on there, they were also seeing other people's request tickets in like a huge list. So a massive data protection breach. So because their servers weren't secure for whatever reason, some people were actually able to see other people's transactions and customer service requests in like a huge list, which is crazy. So that was also happening as well. So Bethesda dropped another bollock on that one. People were getting their basically potentially sensitive information getting broadcast on the internet until someone actually told them, yo, you want to get this sorted out, like I'm actually seeing other people's private information here, you might want to get that patched, Bethesda, eh? Oh, you don't understand the concept of patch. Well, you do, it's just like you're just being lazy, aren't you? So that's happened as well. So that's another major that's a data breach on top of everything else. And another thing with the Nuka-Cola bottles, they've cheaped out on that as well, haven't they? People that they're releasing like a side project with the Nuka-Cola rum, which we can buy these, what was supposed to be these special Nuka-Cola shaped bottles in the shape of rockets, as there are in the game, with proper Nuka-Cola rum as it would appear in the game. But instead of having like a proper shaped premium nice glass bottle, what they've done, they've just used like generic, what the company they've outsourced it to, they've just basically cheaped out again. They're just using generic straight bottles and putting them in these plastic enclosures to make it look like a rocket shaped bottle. It's hilarious. I'll put a picture on it. It's beyond pathetic. It's the saga keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And that they have the nerve to start to put microtransactions back in. They tried to as like a recompense for like not having sending out the canvas bags originally before they started making the proper ones. They were just offering people 500 atom coins, I think it was, which is basically worth about £2 worth of in-game currency as recompense. So that just to try and shut up the fan base, and like people, they weren't having it, which is fair enough. Like, you're taking the piss. Like, I wanted a canvas bag and you're giving me in-game currency worth about £2, if that. I mean, what bothers me is it's just like I think like if this is the path that Bethesda want to go down, then that's their business. But they're now under heavy scrutiny now, and people are now the excuse that it's a Bethesda game, it's going to be released buggy, and they always do it. They're charming. Their games are always buggy. People they've had enough of that. That excuse is not going to wash anymore, and rightly so, because the way they released this game in such a state is just staggering to me. I was going to get it originally, but then I watched people like play it and like, is this it? You've just copied and pasted Fallout 4, but you've broke... Fallout 4 was an okay game, to be fair, but they've basically copied and pasted most things wholesale from Fallout 4 and added an online component that doesn't work properly, and it's even buggier than that game was, and that game was a mess when it first came out. Alright, Bethesda, if you want to release keep releasing games in that state, you're just going to people are just going to like say, well, I'm not going to buy any more games from you because you're just taking the piss now. Fallout 76, as a recompense of that, they had to like heavily reduce the price of it. You can get it for now like £15 now, and it's only been out like a month or something. So that's like, because like they're having to they're having to damage control this, aren't they? Even the most hardcore of Fallout fans are saying this is not acceptable, and they put up a lot of crap from Bethesda. And what worries me is, like, of course, like if they intended to use the same engine for the new Skyrim game coming out, not new Skyrim game, new Elder Scrolls game, Elder Scrolls 6 that's going to come out whenever it is. They're going to use the same engine. What state is that going to be in when that finally comes out? Elder Scrolls, of all, like a hugely prestigious franchise, and Bethesda, in their current state, with their contempt for their customer base and like unwillingness to release games in a decent state, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be an absolute mess. And I love Skyrim. It's probably the last decent thing that bloody Bethesda's actually released. And I know it's like cool to hate on Skyrim. I can understand that. Like the amount of times that Bethesda have re-released it, it's become like a meme in itself. Like Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox One X, PC twice, and not including the VR versions as well. It's, like 7 or 8 different versions of it's crazy. But Skyrim's one of my all-time personal favourite games. But it's probably be the last decent thing I'll ever release, quite frankly. And that new game from Obsidian that they did. Rather stupid. Well, they're going to get just desserts, aren't they, Bethesda? Because they've the way they treated Obsidian when they were making New Vegas, they basically forced them to make a game in like less than 18 months. New Vegas in less than 18 months. That's why you can see where they've cut corners. But it still ended up being one of the best 3D Fallout games that's ever been made, even despite its problems. And like Bethesda hate that. They hate that, and they don't ever acknowledge New Vegas in their marketing or whatever. Or any of the top guys that don't acknowledge it, and because like they just basically treated Obsidian like shit, basically. And they, to their credit, they still managed to turn out something that's a highly enjoyable game despite its problems, making them use like a really dated engine, Gamebryo as it was, full of bugs, and they managed to make something out of it in the end. But yeah, that's another. But their new game coming out, because Microsoft are now bought out Obsidian. That new game, I can't remember what it's called, but that looks pretty sweet. I'll probably end up getting that. But if Bethesda want to carry on down this path, that's their business. If they want to run the risk, well, they're no longer the open world kings anymore. Like they're releasing like third-rate crap. It doesn't work properly, and even when they do get patches, it's still not working. Still not working properly. So they just take the piss of the fan base, and they're just going to go elsewhere. And I can see Elder Scrolls being a right mess, and they're in serious trouble. Well, they're not in serious trouble now, but if they keep going down the path they are now, then I think that hopefully they're understanding that patience is wearing thin. A lot of their customers are voting with their wallet. They're asking for refunds, and then they're going to think twice about buying a new Bethesda game, even if it is like a franchise that they love. The new Elder Scrolls games probably. I'm certainly going to think about twice about buying the new Elder Scrolls game. It was an essential. I was going to buy it anyway. Probably if you asked me about a year ago, it was like essential purchase day one. But now, after what this has happened with Fallout 76, I'm thinking twice. I'm going to think it's probably going to be terrible. Bethesda behind it because they're lazy and they're not doing anything. So yes. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you guys in the new year. Thank you for listening for my rants. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.